There are 5 types of practice that I think every golfer should be doing, but they don't. So what are they and how can they help you improve your game? Let's go find out. So I think the biggest mistake people do when they go out and practice is they only ever do one type of golf practice. So today I want to run you through 5 different ways you can practice and give you 5 different things you can hopefully incorporate into all your practice sessions to make sure you actually improve when you're spending time on your golf. Now I think it's really easy to be that type of golfer who turns up to the range with a massive bucket of balls, slams them down and just hits loads of shots. And I know as golfers it's really exciting to hit driver, try work on distance, get really focused on that. And what we're not very good at doing is doing different things to make our practice relatable to taking it out on the golf course. Having said that, there's always a few things you can reset on the driving range or the practice ground. So that's where we're going to start. And first I want to talk about technical block practice. So I think this is the type of practice that most people would think about when they go to the range, and it's generally doing like one thing or one drill on repeat that you've been given to work on your swing. But a big thing people don't do is set up correctly and get in a good position before they do this. Now, if you watch players on tour, you'll often see them with a lot of alignment sticks, and there's a big reason for that. That's because your setup and your aim is super important to having a consistent swing. Now, it's really easy when we're out on the golf course to get out of kilter with these because we're avoiding different hazards, we've got holes that are different shapes all the time, we're trying to hit different shots, and your aim and your setup can really get out of whack. So we're going to do a few basic things first to make sure we have a good setup for this on the practice ground, so we're trying to get some repeatability. Now, before we actually get to putting anything on the ground, which you might have seen a lot with tour pros on the range if you're watching professional golf, I'm actually going to start with my target because I think this is the most important. When we're out on the golf course, we're using our eyes a lot to make sure we're aiming in the right place to give us the right shot position. So we want to make sure we're training this out on the golf course. So I'm going to pick that yellow flag down there as my target line, and I'm actually going to set this stick up ahead of my ball on that line. Now, the reason I like to do this is because we've all been in that position out on the golf course where we stand over the golf ball, look up at the target or the pin, and just feel like we're not aiming at it. Maybe we're aiming right, maybe we're aiming left, and we just either adjust our setup or adjust our swing to kind of account for that bias. Now, setting this up really allows you to see if you are visually looking straight down the shot or not, because I know that stick is on line with the ball and the target. So if I set up here and it doesn't look like it is, then I need to do something about that, or I need to learn where it looks like it is to make sure I repeat that out on the golf course. We can also get really good feedback from this position because once I start hitting shots, I'm going to visually see really easily if I'm starting it left or right at this. Sometimes it's really easy to visually look at the end of the shot and kind of take blame in that, but not think about what's happening right at the start here. Then I'm just going to add in an extra stick parallel to my feet to make sure my feet are aligned correctly. So from there, I know I'm going to have a really consistent setup in terms of my alignment, where my eyes are looking. Also, generally at the start of my sessions, I like to just do a few drills to make sure I'm stood a good distance from the golf ball, because this can really affect your overall strike. The other day, I was doing all my driver drills that I had from my last golf lesson. I was like, this feels good, I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but I'm hitting the ball terrible. And luckily I had my swing coach app up, so it was recording my swings, and it was like, yeah, you stood so far from the golf ball. Like, it gives you a score from 0 to 10 on different areas of your golf swing. 10 being like the worst, you need to work on it. 0 being like perfect. That was like a 6 out of 10 for how far away from the golf ball I was stood, just because I hadn't been thinking about it. So it's really important to keep your eye on those things, because it can be the simple things that are pushing your swing out. I'd be pretty pleased with that one. Now back to what technical or block practice is. This is where you're using a drill or you're working on one specific thing that you're trying to improve in your swing. And block practice means you're just kind of repeating that and doing it over and over again. So you're very much focusing on trying to improve one thing, and that's just the focus of that part of the session. So once I've warmed up, that's generally what I like to do at the start of my practice to get dialed in, try and improve that feel. At the moment, most of my big technical thoughts are with driver. That's what I'm trying to improve the most. You'll have seen that from the last golf lesson I put up. But with irons, I'm just trying to make sure I keep a bit more compact, because sometimes I can get too long. So for me, I almost feel like I'm playing like a half punch shot. That's the feeling of what I want out on the golf course to stop me getting really long overswing. Now, a thing that's really important with this time of practice is that you do a lot of practice swings, a lot of slow-mo swings, and really try to ingrain the feel, because when something's different, you have to over-exaggerate it, you have to slow it down for your body to kind of understand and then be able to begin to repeat it. So you'll quite often see me doing stuff on the range that looks nothing like a swing. It might look completely different to my actual swing, but it's just me trying to memorize and understand and create a feeling that will change my swing a little bit. Now, one thing that's massively important when you're practicing is having good feedback, because golf's one of those games where you feel like you're doing the right thing or hitting the right position in your swing, and actually you're way off. And there's just no point practicing if, one, you don't know what you're trying to do, and two, you don't know if you're actually doing what you're trying to do. That's why when I'm practicing, I pretty much always have the Swing Coach app running. It's taking videos of my swing, it's giving me feedback, which is personalized, related to my coach putting in which part of my swing he wants me to keep an eye on, and it actually talks to me. So if I turn the volume up on my phone, it will give me feedback on each position that I'm trying to improve. If you want to get better, you really need to have an idea of, one, what you're trying to do, and then two, if you're actually managing to execute that. So you can see there my takeaway was a little bit out, managed to neutralise it more, down from 2 to 1 on the second go. So having that feedback is really helpful. If you're someone who's actually not sure what you should be working on, you can also use the app to take videos of your swing. It will then benchmark all the different areas of your swing, highlight what it thinks the most important thing for you to work on is, and a coach will actually give you drills for that. So it's super helpful if you're kind of stuck with not knowing what to practice. Okay, practice type 2 is random practice. Now, when we go out on the golf course, we very rarely hit the same shot twice in a row, and if we do, it's because something's gone wrong and we're hitting the provisional. But yeah, when we're out on the driving range, all we do is do the same shot over and over again, which really isn't reflective of what we do out on the golf course and isn't helping your overall performance. So I'm going to take away all this nice station I've just set up, and we're going to do some random practice, which is where we're changing the targets up, we're changing the clubs up, we're hitting different shots every time to try and recreate that feeling of being out on the golf course. What I kind of want to do here is break up that nice little rhythm you get into on the driving range, put you more in a golf course scenario, and have you have to change the shots, hit different clubs, point in different directions to make sure that the swing changes you're working on work in all different scenarios, and they're not just working because you've kind of got in the groove and the flow. Now, I'm really lucky at my golf club at Woodley here, we've got loads of different targets, but you can also just make your own up. If you're somewhere who has a practice ground, you could go put some alignment sticks out with cones on top, or you just got to be a little bit creative if you've not got something out there. Now, quite a nice way to do this can be to think of certain holes on the golf course. So it might be that you know on the 5th hole at your club you'd hit a 4-iron off the tee and then a mid-iron. So maybe you do something like that and you kind of repeat different holes, or you can simply just move through the bag, grabbing different clubs and doing different things. If you're someone who feels like you struggle to take your range game to the course, this could be really helpful to add this into sessions. Now, a really good thing to do during these sessions is to have a little notepad and write down things you notice. So it might be, oh, when I aim to a right pin, I notice I draw it a little bit more. And that can then help you out on the golf course know where you need to adjust relative to different shots. I personally know for me, I'm a lot more comfortable aiming right of a pin and drawing it in a little bit. And actually, when I've got to aim left of a flag, I really don't like it. So I have to just kind of adjust and know my comfortability with that. But also maybe I practice aiming left more on the range because I know I struggle with that on the golf course. Okay, we're going to go for a bit of a crazy angle with the 3-wood. Up the right. Try to create a little corridor of a fairway that I've got hit in my brain. Try and miss the rough. Pretty nice. Just pausing for a second to give you a chance to hit that subscribe button. Go on. It's right there. You know you want to. Okay, third type of practice is performance practice. And this is where we add the element of pressure because we need to give ourselves some sort of game, some sort of target to test what we're trying to achieve. Now, I'm extremely fortunate to have a launch monitor, so I have the full swing, and you can do something called a combine on this, where you put different distances in, and then it will test you randomly on those different yardages and give you a score for each one relative to how far you hit it for the correct distance and also relative to the pin, which is obviously very like the golf course, which is a really fantastic way to practice because you can track those scores over time and see if you're getting better. So for me, I really love that. And as you go on, if you're doing well, you do really feel the pressure of the fact that you've got a few shots left and you need to hit them well to keep your score, which kind of really creates that feeling of like pressured shots out on the golf course, which I think is really important. Now, obviously, I understand that everyone has access to that, but we have so many driving ranges with tech now, indoor simulator rooms, which you can choose to hire and do similar things in. But also, there's just so many ways you can create different games on the driving range without necessarily having tech. So it could be that you choose 2 targets out on the range, say this green flag and the yellow flag, and create a fairway. And maybe if you're working on your driving, you decide that you're going to hit 4 iron, 5 wood, 3 wood driver, 3 or 4 shots with each, and track how many you get inside that target. If you're lucky enough to have like different mounds out on the golf course, you could also do games on how many balls you can get to land on different clubs with different distances. So really you can do this any way you want. It's just adding in that element of pressure where there's a consequence. So you give yourself a set number of golf balls, so a set target, and you have to give yourself a score at the end so you can see if you're improving or not. That means if we come to the range again next week, we know quantifiably if we're driving it better or pitching it better than we were. One of my favourite pitching ones is to just put an umbrella out at 40 yards and see how many golf balls I can land in it. And trust me, it's harder than it looks. Okay, let's do my combine. First yardage, we've got 70 yards. Ooh, 70.8. Tall level apparently. That gave me a 100 score. Take that. 80 yards, so I'm going to have to change club. Oh, that's way too long. Too much club, I think. I don't know why I went up so much club then. I just didn't think it was going to go that far. 97 that went instead of 80. 41 needs work. Yeah, I think that's a fair enough assessment from full swing there. Oh, nice. I think I've redeemed myself there a bit. 94.6. That's within good margins, I think. Oh, God, that's terrible. Can't hit shots like that if you're trying to go score. I really don't know where that came from. Oh, flush. Tad right there. Please be the distance. 175.4, we'll take that. 121 score, that's my best yet. Trending. I'll blame talking to you guys as the distraction. Exceptional I got for that, I've never got that before. Okay, tee shot. I always like to do my tee shot last because for me, it's the thing I'm struggling the most on the golf course. I like to put the most pressure on it in my performance games on the range by doing it last to hopefully try make me perform better under pressure in this area. Going to be quite hard to get a really good score on this though because it's obviously going to benchmark me against top pros who hit it a long way. So accuracy, doubly important. Nice. Been striking it so much better the last few days. That was a touch right, but generally my miss is left, so we'll take that. 230 carry with a range ball, we'll take that. 77 gave me average. It was a tad right, and obviously I don't have a top pro swing speed. Okay, not my best performance, I would say. Let's see how we got on. So my combined score was 67, not the best. Best target was 180 yards, weirdly. My 4 iron, I have been loving that club. Gives me a nice little summary. Obviously, if I'd hit multiple shots with each club and done more yardages, it would be a little bit more accurate, but just wanted to do a short test to show you. Okay, practice type 4 is situational, and you eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed I've moved location for this one, and that's because I'm trying to recreate a situation that I see out on the golf course that I know necessarily doesn't suit my eye or that I find difficult to do. So for me, my biggest trouble is having that big left shot with driver. A lot of times I find it happens when I'm really trying not to hit the ball right, or when I'm in a circumstance where there's trees to the right, there's stuff there where I can't use that kind of area to draw the ball in, or where I'm really trying not to go right. As a drawer of the ball, I love to see holes where it moves right to left, where I can kind of swing it in on that like draw shape. And to me, being blocked out down the right is not the one. So what I've done is set up in that situation here where I've got to learn to hit that shot. I've got to learn to hit a straight ball when I can't hit it down to the right. If you follow Charlie Hull on socials, you'll have seen her on Instagram a lot. She posts on her stories, especially when she's down working with her coach. She gets really to the right hand side of the range, almost stood in the bushes sometimes. So she again is eliminating that right side of the golf course. Now when I'm doing that, definitely going to set up my swing coach app to see if I'm swinging it any different here to what I was just in the middle of the range on the range base, just so I can be aware of that out on the golf course. And it might just be, oh, my head's lifting up, or I set up a little bit different. So I know what I need to avoid doing to hit those bad tee shots out on the course. So swing coach is going in. The camera should always be down the line of your hands. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that was so much better. Again, when you're doing stuff like this, it's just really important to have that feedback. So you can be like, all right, I hit a good shot there. Why was that? All right, I didn't hit a good shot there. Why was that? As with all of these things, almost a lot of practice time is trying to gather information. That's almost just as important as hitting the shots. I do feel like I finally got over this driver hurdle. Like I drove it so well when I played at the weekend. I was so pleased. Yes. Now, sometimes you'll find with situational practice you can't recreate it on the range and you might have to head out onto the golf course, but that's just something to be aware of. There's some shots you just can't practice on the range. And for me, I know sometimes if I'm struggling with certain shots or certain tee shots, actually the best thing to do is just go out on the golf course and practice on that hole. But doing little things like this, like creating a side where you can't miss, is really helpful in certain scenarios. Okay, practice type 5 is dirty practice. Stay with me for this one. Now, we always get those scenarios on the golf course, which we can say, oh, like we got a bit unlucky today, like maybe I got in a divot, or every time I was just off the fairway, I was behind an overhanging branch. And yes, in certain cases, you could say that's true, it's unlucky, but also if you just practice those shots, you'll be able to get out of them much better and hopefully lower your scores. Now we can do this in long game, but I think it's also especially important to do this in short game because it's really easy to get bad lies when we're chipping, plugged lies in bunkers, lies on downhill slopes in bunkers, and all those shots are very playable if you learn how to play them. But some ones you can practice on the range for long game would be instances like going in a divot. What is my strategy for what to do in that situation? Am I going to play it normally? Am I going to hit a knockdown shot? Am I going to change my club? Am I going to shorten my swing? Like, what's the approach in this situation to get the ball back in play and not let it affect my score too much? I think this is something you see juniors do naturally a lot, especially in groups. They go out and practice and you'd say they're like doing silly things or messing around, but actually learning these skills is really valuable to lowering your scores. Now, another thing you could add in here is shot shaping. Can you move the ball left to right? Can you move it right to left? And it's not necessarily going to use those shots all the time, but it's just in those situations where maybe you absolutely need it. It's the last hole in match play. You've got to go for it. There's no point not doing it. But at least you know you've practiced it and you have a chance of pulling that shot off. So it's a pretty nasty divot. What I do here is like put the ball back in my stance a little bit, lean the shaft of the club more, try and do more of a knockdown shot and just accept it's going to come out low and release. Not my best, but that's the point of practicing. Hopefully be better next time. Oh, much better. I'd be dead chuffed with that on the course. Now again, make sure you're doing this through the bag and also with different clubs. I have had a scenario recently where I've had to kind of hit a high cut with fairway woods. When you want it to land soft on the green, now it's quite firm because we're in the middle of summer. I mean, it was a cut, but it was a terrible strike. Nice. Basically, the whole point of this type of practice is to practice the shots that you really don't want to get and that you think you wouldn't get, and the things we forget about, and just to expand your toolbox of skills. And it's not that those shots are necessarily going to be perfect, but it just means they're not going to ruin your scorecard next time they happen.